Welcome, welcome. Come on in, everybody. Welcome to our next episode of Spirit Sessions, A View of the Light, where we take concepts and spiritual ideas and we break them down into everyday use. And we have an amazing guest today. Let me read to you this bio. Okay, Brien Foerster, our guest, was born in the U.S. He grew up in Canada, graduating from the university with a BSc, an honors degree, and a passion for the indigenous artwork and the indigenous people. He followed his passions and became a professional carver of totem poles. And then in Hawaii, he spent 2 years helping the people build a 62-foot catamaran, which of course led him to Polynesia and then to Peru. This is where I love it. A tour of the Inca city of Cusco did not give him the answers that he wanted, as in who built these amazing structures and how were they built. So he spent the last 12 years using his background in science and learning from the local and foreign geologists, engineers, and the valuable oral traditions to explore the mysteries of these astonishing megalithic stonework. This led to an amazing revelation. All of these megalithic works of Peru, Bolivia, Easter Island, Egypt, Lebanon, Petra, and Mexico, and all these other places, they were built many thousands of years before any known culture, and they had been devastated in a global cataclysm about 12,000 years ago. So you can read about that in his book, Aftershock. He has published 29 books. On YouTube, he's got more than 960 videos. I know, I binge on these things. I love this information. He's appeared on numerous TV shows, including Ancient Aliens 15 times. He's explored over 90 countries. I mean, this is incredible. And he's been on numerous radio shows and podcasts. And now today, we have him on Spirit Sessions. Welcome, Brien. I honor you, and I thank you. Thank you for coming. Can you first
My pleasure. Thank you.
define the term megalithic? What is megalithic? Let's tell everybody, how do you define
Megalithic basically just means large stones. So more specifically, it's about constructions made out of stones at least larger than what a human being can carry. So that's
that? Wow.
anywhere from say 500 pounds to the ones in Baalbek in Lebanon that are, what are they, 1,500 tons.
Amazing. Amazing. And so all of this studying has led you to these elongated heads, the Paracas skulls. Tell us about these skulls, because these are amazing to me.
Yeah, most people actually will have heard of elongated skulls if they've watched any paranormal TV or anything like that, or a series called In Search of that Leonard Nimoy did. They're skulls which are basically large. They're cone-shaped and they're larger than normal, and they've been classified as being Nephilim or Anunnaki or alien or hybrid or all sorts of things. The largest ones in the world are from where I am, which is Paracas, Peru. And they've been identified by academics as being the result of cranial deformation or head binding from infancy, but there are anomalies which make them much more fascinating than that.
Wow, that's so truly amazing. And so as you've looked at all these structures all over, you've seen signs of this incredible cataclysm that happened 12,000 years ago. Can you share with us a little more about this cataclysm and what happened to these Paracas people?
Sure. Well, it was a series of events that affected certain parts of the planet. So any ancient culture that existed that was sophisticated, the only remains we have of them are their stone structures. So, for example, the Giza pyramids, which were not constructed by the dynastic people, the site of Baalbek in Lebanon, the huge complex of Petra in Jordan, which is actually 12 kilometers long, and then megalithic sites in Peru and Bolivia, some of the giant stone figures on Easter Island, they all show cataclysmic damage or catastrophic damage that academics say, well, that was the Spanish, doing this, or it was somebody else doing that. And the amount of damage is beyond human capacity. Like, it's not people with hammers trying to break something. This is large sections of these megalithic structures literally burnt off or torn off. And so Robert Schoch and other geologists and other academics now state that these events happened 12,000 years ago approximately and took course over at least 300 years. So they also fit in with the timing of Atlantis, because Atlantis,
Yes.
basically 11,700 years ago, was the destruction of Atlantis. And so when we look at the scientific evidence, it wasn't that Atlantis sank, it's that the ocean rose, because, again, Schoch and others have proven that the world oceans rose really rapidly by more than 100 meters about 12,000 years ago. So the problem with Plato was that he said it sank, and the actual truth is that the Atlanteans all of a sudden were inundated with water, and they had to either leave or perish. So that's the scientific evidence of Atlantis.
Wow. That's amazing. A lot of us have connections with Atlantis and Lemuria and stuff, so
Hmm.
that's fascinating. So the Paracas people, you know what they look like. You've studied them. What is it that they look like?
Actually, I can show you. Luckily, I have this this book here. I can show you some pictures. Um, these are renditions by Marcia Moore, and an American artist, and
Ooh, it's really cool.
yeah, she doesn't exaggerate anything. She basically will take a skull shape, and then she'll rebuild it with 3D programming software. And
Like the
so this is
forensic
what she
artists
thinks.
do.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, she's not really a forensic artist, but her main subject matter has been Native people mainly of North America, because she's been connected with Native people for a long time. So she's rebuilt a
Oh,
lot of Native people's faces, and this is what she thinks the Paracas looked like.
the something that struck Bex and I the other day, the pictures of Nefertiti and Aphrodite with the big headdresses and their
Hmm.
larger heads, and we're wondering, were they Paracas people or Paracas descendants? Was the headdress not a headdress like a big built-out headdress, but just covering their heads? Because the pictures of
Well,
some of those people look very similar.
yeah, that only really occurred during what's called the Amarna period, which is the time of Akhenaten and Nefertiti and Tutankhamun, and what appears to be the actual facts, because their mummies have never been found. Egyptologists have stated that they think they have Nefertiti, but they don't have any DNA proof of that. So it appears that they didn't actually have elongated skulls themselves, but when Akhenaten, who was very much an adept at the mystery schools of ancient Egypt, compared to the other pharaohs, what he decided was he decided that the general public should know the actual history of their people. So rather than hiding the
Oh.
sacred knowledge, he had it portrayed. He said, like, that's why he looks androgynous. He told his sculptors, depict me as I am, because I'm a spiritually evolved person. I don't care what I look like. It's who I am. And so he allowed them to make maybe exaggerations, we don't know. But I think what he was trying to do was connect himself with Osiris, that Osiris was his great ancestor and was not a fictitious god, but was a being that actually lived with Isis, and they were the forerunners of the dynastic people, but way back in time, connected with the star Sirius. Because if you don't know, the reason why the Sphinx is pointed in the direction it is he or she is looking at Osiris or Sirius rising. So I think that's why he
Hmm.
did that. He said we are divine, and this is what the ancestors looked like. So we are the descendants of this. This is what makes us different from you, the common
Oh.
people.
Man, that's so amazing. So, where is the oldest skulls? Where all have they been found? I've heard that they've even been found outside of Chicago, but that the government like hid those. So, what is the history of?
The most common timeline is about 2,000 years ago. And so you have cranial deformation among the Maya and different groups in South America or in Mexico. Then, of course, the Paracas. The Inca probably had elongated skulls because most of them were wiped out during a civil war prior to the arrival of the Spanish. So all of their depictions of the Inca rulers was by Spanish painters who basically put them back together, but didn't do a good job. And then also Attila the Hun had an elongated skull. So you find them throughout Europe in Germany and different parts of Europe. Also Stonehenge, they found elongated skulls there associated with what are called long barrows, because elongated skull people were buried in long barrows, whereas normal people were buried in round barrows. The problem is that the Stonehenge area is a major military base, so almost all of the evidence is hiding away. But a great researcher you should contact is Maria Wheatley, and she's been able to find information about them. The most recent elongated skull people they were called the Mangbetu people who lived in Congo, but they've also been found in Australia from 12,000 years ago, and Melanesia, and lots of different places.
So are they Homo sapien DNA? You've done DNA work on them, or are they a different, like, I don't know if there's a different genus, they're Homo sapiens, but are they different genetically from us,
Yeah,
besides the elongated skull?
Well, we did some pretty extensive DNA testing with the Ministry of Culture of Peru, because these are pre-Columbian artifacts. And the results that came out, the results should be, if they were 100% Native American, the only haplogroups associated with Native people of South America are haplogroups A, B, C, and D. And the results that came back were U2E1, H1H, K, H2A, J1B1, HR, and B4. So the only Native American haplogroup that showed up is B4. And so that means that all the other genetic historical background or ancestral background comes from somewhere else. And I've been able to figure out that that's likely the Black Sea and Crimea area, which is a long way from the coast of Peru.
Have you got theories on how you think they got here?
Yeah, I think I've been a sailor all my life, so I've been looking at maps of wind and current patterns, and there's a thing called the countercurrent, which is located almost exactly at the equator. And so if you head south out of the Black Sea area in order to encounter a major ocean, you get to the Persian Gulf, and then from the Persian Gulf, a current will take you eastwards all the way to the coast of Ecuador. And then from Ecuador, the winds blow 20% of the time south. So you just wait for the wind. We had it yesterday. And over the course of time, you wind up with this huge bay, which is the largest bay in Peru, and that's right here, Paracas.
How awesome!
So I think they were fleeing. I think they were under attack. And so they fled, because we've also found 0 artifacts that are weapons of the Paracas. They made hammers, they made arrows and things, but you could use those for hunting or for making buildings. No specific tools that looked like they were intended for weaponry. So they may have been very peaceful, very highly spiritual people who just decided we have to leave or else we're going to be wiped out.
That's so amazing. I love that. So they're not ancestors of ours. They were just a different subspecies, right?
Yeah, actually, that's also what the physical morphology of the skull showed through 3 American experts, 2 of them medical professionals. What's called the foramen magnum which is where your spinal column enters the bottom of your skull. With us, it's perfectly in the balance point because that's what nature did in order to create our very interesting anatomy. And with the Paracas, the foramen magnum is 2.5 centimeters back. So that can't be done through any kind of binding because you'd choke the person in 5 minutes. So that's a genetic aberration, and that makes them a subspecies able to breed with Homo sapiens sapiens. But they were not Homo sapiens sapiens.
Uh-huh. Cool.
Wow.
Well, that makes so much sense with the neck. With the tilt.
Yeah. So is there government suppression of this information? Because until I found YouTube, I didn't know just barely a little about it. Maybe it's just me.
Well, luckily in Peru, I wouldn't say there's any government suppression. They're not interested. You know, in the U.S., there's been a lot of suppression of knowledge about so-called giants and all, you know, flying saucers and all sorts of stuff. And Egypt too has been really strict because they've been under the control of foreign archaeologists for so long who had all the funding. So if a discovery was made that didn't fit their paradigm, they would tell the government, you know, you have to lock this door because otherwise we're leaving and you're not getting funding anymore from us. It's opening up now. Luckily, Egypt is opening up now, but that's been the way it's been for a long time. But in Peru, they're just like, we don't want to know about it. So I have the freedom to go, okay, I'll blast it all over the internet instead. You know, if they don't want to publish the results, more than 1 million people have seen my YouTube videos where I discuss the DNA results. And it's like, because it belongs to all of us. Free.
Yes. And thank you for that. I think
Pleasure.
that's just so cool. Yeah. So is there any more questions from people? Rhonda?
I think everybody's just listening in awe because there's so much new information to us. There's lots and lots of people watching this morning, and it's been shared a lot. So just keep on sharing, guys. There were no weapons found. That's Emily says that she loved that aspect of it.
None.
Which is
also another site, which is actually the oldest carbon dated ceremonial city. This is much younger than the megalithic stuff, but it's called Corral, and it's 5,000 years old. It's located in northern Peru, and it had no walls or defenses. So again, the whole history of us being that we've always been warlike, etc. Corral was a major ceremonial city connected with the coast of Peru, the highlands, and the jungle, the Amazon jungle, 5,000 years ago. They've never found a weapon. They've never found a defensive wall. So it was a commercial center where everyone got along with everyone else. These are the lies that standard history keeps perpetuating. You know, we've always been at war, therefore we have a right to blow up this or that. It's like, no. Only certain mindsets do that. Other ones don't really even comprehend it.
So I got one basic question about the Elongated people. They have the larger brain, obviously, with that larger skull.
Yeah.
So that's probably why they were so advanced in their engineering and maybe in their other ways too. Do you think they had any sort of telepathic or any sort of other types of gifts with that larger brain?
I think so. Actually, the cultures in the highlands of Peru that built the megalithic stuff, they were different. They could have been descended from someone else. But the Paracas, their skulls or their brains were about 25% larger than normal. And the key features so far appear to be motor and possibly psychic abilities. So I think they could very well have been telepathic, as well as having their own language was called Pukina, which was also the royal language of the Inca. The Inca had their own separate language from how they spoke to the common people, because their basic philosophy, the Inca basic philosophy was a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. So they only experts were allowed to learn certain things. You weren't allowed to learn a little bit about engineering, for example, or medicine. You were either an engineer or you were a doctor. You couldn't learn a bit about it. And that way, only people of expertise were in high key positions because that's a very well structured society. And one fallacy about the Inca, I have to say, is there's been too much written about them that they did human sacrifice. There's no
Yeah.
evidence whatsoever. None.
Oh,
Zero.
good.
That's all we
Yeah.
Good.
learned
I'm from
about,
Inca.
pulling the
Well,
eating
because the
human heart out of someone. Yeah.
yeah, well, part of the Inca philosophy was that life is precious, and they were the greatest agricultural experts probably in the world. So they didn't have to do things like ceremonies to the sky for rain because they understood how the climate worked. They kept incredible records. They had another fallacy is that the Inca didn't have a form of language or written language. They did. They had a hieroglyphic system, but academics just go, "Oh
Oh,
no, those are just
nice.
symbols." It's like no, they had two forms of encoded language. One of them was mathematical. One of them was symbolic, and all of this knowledge is just coming back. Has been coming back in the last maybe 5 or 10 years. This is the Inca
Nice.
pride coming back. This is native pride returning and taking their rightful place and sharing their knowledge to all of us. That's what's great about the internet. Is there's this great
Yes.
upwelling of indigenous knowledge all over the world, including us Europeans, to bring back what was thought to have been lost, but has never been lost. It's always existed, and now we need to use it all again. Also, the megalithic sites, you get a sense when you're there, they want to function again. They want to be remembered for what they did, so they can do what they did for all those who wish to come.
They could have been stargates, but somebody was
Well,
asking. Yeah,
well,
somebody was asking.
there are locations in the highlands of Peru that could very well have been stargates. There's one I'm just writing. I'm finishing off another book right now about lost ancient technology of Egypt, or sorry, Peru and Bolivia, Volume 2. And actually today I'm writing about a place called Huaca, or Ñaupa Huaca, which could have been an actual stargate, like
Wow.
physical, that's still there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess you might need that
Oh, that's so
elongated
cool.
brain to use it, mind you. Um, but
Ah.
Well, the great thing is that we only take certain people there because it's one of those places that is so sacred. You don't want to take a standard tourist who won't, who just wants to take a couple of pictures of them. But our friend Wilco, who's a native wisdom keeper, every time we go with a group, he has to come with us. And then we don't tell people, but then he spontaneously does a ceremony. We don't tell people we're doing ceremony,
Oh,
which is the
nice.
best way to do it, I think.
Right.
It happens, and everyone's going, "Oh, wow." And it all has to
Ah.
deal with energy and acoustics. And
Oh, neat.
every time it's mind blowing because the place goes, thank you for using me.
wow.
See, that's beautiful.
I
That's what
so
I
want to
love
go to
about you,
Peru
how
now.
you
It's on
use
my
the
list.
locals. I know, we
Hmm.
gotta do this. Emily, we gotta do this. Um, oh no, now I forgot my question. Go ahead,
Sorry.
you guys. I had something exciting, but go ahead.
We're just blown away.
No.
Yes, my brain is just
So
completely
those
taking it all
tall
in.
artworks, you guys, what are those called, Rhonda? You guys, we were talking about that the other day. Those 100 feet long pictures, the NASCAR. No, not NASCAR.
Oh,
Those
the
big,
Nazca geoglyphs?
Yeah.
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 You've been there and you've seen those things. What is the feeling that you got from those places too?
Well, actually, the nearest one is about 15 miles away from here. It's called
Right.
it's right over there, and it's called the Candelabro. It's 500 feet tall. It's on the side of a mountain. You can only see it from the sky or from the ocean. So it was probably a navigational marker. And they extend from here to Nazca, which is the distance of at least 150 miles. And most people know about the Nazca lines and figures, which there are about 30 of those, but there are 1,500 of them in this area. And they
Wow.
were made over the
Wow.
course of 1,000 years.
Be seen
And
from
yeah, they're
space,
Wow.
right? You can see him from space.
Yes, well, I'm not sure if some are big enough for that, but there's a famous one called the astronaut because he or she has his hand up in the air, and that one was made by the Paracas culture. So that's possibly a connection with off-world beings. But the whole network and system is really complex, and that's why I wrote a book about them because they are so complicated. There are also some lines that look like they're runways, but I flew over Nazca 3 months ago with Eric von Daniken. It was just amazing.
Oh, the guy that wrote Chariots of the Gods.
Oh yeah,
yeah, very cool.
He's 82 now, and
Yeah.
I got to go with a film crew with him. We actually flew lower than is legal, but it was incredible because we got so close to them in this plane. And he of course is one of the people who made these things world famous just out of his own curiosity. But even he himself said, I never said they were runways for UFOs. I said they looked like runways. So that that story was taken out of context. But that was I don't know if I'll ever fly over Nazca again after that because that was just so mind-boggling. He was my hero when I was a kid, and then here I am in a plane with him flying over Nazca.
Mine too, Brian. That's that's how I heard about these things in the first place.
That's so cool, you guys.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, I wish we could talk to you all day, but I know you're a very busy man and you have writing to do. Bex, do you have some announcements for us before we go?
I do. First, I want to say thank you so much. Like, I feel like this whole conversation has been an out-of-body experience. I'm trying to, ground myself back in my body now because I'm just out here. I can't even.
So millions of questions.
Yeah, my brain is just completely fried right now. But I do have announcements. Thank God I wrote them down. At 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, we have Nourishing Your Multidimensional Body with Kathy Homeyer. And tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, we have the Cosmic Ascension Report with Janelle Cameron. We can announce our winner of the Share It Out from last week, which they won a Healing Through Your Records session with Rhonda Elliott. And the winner is Nikki Fox. Congratulations.
Hey, Nikki.
And whoever shares out the most this week will win either a short Akashic Records reading or an angel channeling, your choice, with Teresa Warren. So please share it out. Share it out all over the place because, spread the word and spread the light. People have a right to this information that Brien has done such an incredible job collecting and bringing out. And, it's time.
And we'll put Brian's his website where he has all his videos. He's got this amazing website. You could spend hours going through that, which I have. Yes,
you can binge watch 2 hours a day like I do.
And I'll put it in the links for you, Brian. And if you want to have an amazing tour, that you can go through his tour site there, which I'm saving up my pennies. Okay. So
thank you, Brian.
Yes, thank you.
Well,
and next week, I forgot to mention, next week on our show, we have the amazing Shelley Soul and Laurel Winslet are going to join us. So that's going to be an awesome show. I can't wait to do that one. So that was it, I think. Yeah. And thank you so much, Brian, for coming and sharing your knowledge with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have really good internet there, Brian.
What you're bringing to light.
Excellent Wi-Fi.
We
could broadcast from there.
Yeah, it's only in the last 3 months. It's actually a Vietnamese company that did fiber optics. So before that we had awful internet, but now it's amazing. Thank God.
It's amazing. Yeah, we'll come down and you don't mind hosting us, do you? You can come up here.
Yeah.
We don't have any really megalithic sites up here, but
no. It's all under 2 miles of ice 12,000 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, that does it.
South America didn't get that. That's why the stuff's here. That's why the stuff is in Egypt too, because the Ice Age didn't affect certain parts of the world, and that's where you find, even in Polynesia, there's some really odd stuff to look at.
Oh, I never thought about that. Thanks so much again.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you.
And
thank you.
Thanks everyone for watching. Share it out and like it up. We'll see you next week. Thanks.